Hi, Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking the Smith and Wesson M&P10 that we did a previous video on, and we're going to be tricking it out.
Ooh, saw that? I missed just to the lower left, right?
Yep.
Impact. There we go.
So if you didn't see the last video, go ahead and go check that out. It's just us going over and shooting the stock Smith and Wesson M&P10, which is a great value for a .308 rifle if you're looking to get into it. This one is really affordable, but it is, like I said, a basic Smith and Wesson M&P10. So with that being said, we're going to be just completely revamping the whole gun, tip to butt. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it and start taking off the old furniture. And as we go through it, I'll kind of give you an idea of what products we're going to be putting on it. But first off, easiest thing to take off here, and of course what we'll do, like we do before we start any project with a firearm, is clear it. Of course, make sure it is unloaded. And then step 2 is to just repeat step 1. And physically just look into the chamber whenever you do that. And we're good. So this is a safe firearm. I'm just going to go ahead and start by pulling off the stock. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to take a quick sip of this steaming hot coffee. That's delicious. And I'm going to set it aside. Because right here, I was going to knock it over. It's going to be a whole mess. And y'all were going to have to watch me clean up coffee for 10 minutes. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is get this stock off of here. And just like any mil-spec stock, all you do is, notice how it has a little tilt here? We're just going to grab it up front and pull it straight down and off. Alright. And one thing I will note about this M&P10, these takedown pins are super tight in this thing. So I'm going to use a punch to help me get these loose. And we're going to be stretching this thing out to the 500 yards, so I like that it is really tight. And that will open up over time. It'll get a little bit looser, so a gun coming from the factory tight is never a bad thing. Alright, so I'll just grab a bench block here in one of these drawers. I've been saying for maybe 2 years now I'm actually going to label these drawers. But today's not that day. Alright, so I have a .308 vise block from Midwest Industries. I'm just going to take it and just use it to support the receiver just like this while I knock those pins out. That's all we're going to do. And I'm just going to give it a little tap here. Super tight pins. And if I were to just, and I will know this is like the second time I've pushed those pins out. If you just sit here and work them back and forth a few times, they'll loosen up nice. So the front one's not nearly as tight. Partly because we relieve tension by taking that rear one off. Okay. So what we'll do next is actually just go ahead and pull off this grip. And to do that, I'll grab my Brownells Magnetip screwdriver bits here. Use my longer handle. And I think that is the right size hex bit for this. Yep. Alright. Take the screw. Take the grip. Set it aside. Make sure we hang on to our springs. So we have our selector spring and detent, and our rear takedown pin spring and detent in here. So we just need to make sure we're retaining control of those. And what I'm actually going to do is pull them out. And I'll leave the detent for the takedown end. But I'm going to pull them out just so I have control over them. And it doesn't randomly fall out on the floor when I don't want it to. Okay, so now that we have that off, Our lower receiver is kind of in a place we want it. So if you watch the video we did on this thing, you notice that we were complaining about the trigger because it is just a mil-spec trigger. So we're going to go ahead and pull that out too while we got this thing apart. I'm going to relieve tension on the hammer. I'm going to take a punch, and I'm just going to push the hammer out. Or the hammer pin, excuse me. And you should just be able to do that by hand. Pin came right out. I'll set that over there. Now I'm going to grab the hammer and pull my punch out. And hammer and spring come right out. And the trigger pin should be even easier to take out now that the hammer pin, or the hammer, is no longer retaining it. Pin comes out. And let's see if we can get this trigger out without pulling that selector out. Yep, there we go. Came right out. Alright, and the new one that's going to be going in there is the Geissele Brownells exclusive G2S Enhanced, or G2SE trigger. But for now, that's actually, well, no, I take that back. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my buffer and my spring, because I do have a Midwest Industries end plate to replace this standard end plate that has a QD sling attachment on it. And then I'm going to stake the castle nut. So the factory one, if you look right here, let me get a pointing tool. It looks like they, I don't even want to say they tried to stake it. It looks like they thought about staking it, but then didn't. So we're actually going to stake that. Somebody did something there, but it wasn't a staking. I don't know what's up with that. But we'll fix that. Okay. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and do the whole lower, and then we'll move on to the upper. So we'll knock out everything we need to knock out on this lower. All right, so I'm going to take these small parts here, get them out of the way. We'll take my Midwest Industries block here. And I'm going to install the receiver onto it. And I'm going to go ahead and get everything on the back end done. And of course the vise we're using, this is the Brownells gunsmithing vise. Alright, so now I need a wrench. And I will use, let's see what we got here. Yep, we also have a Midwest Industries wrench, that'll work great. And that castle nut was not very tight. That would have definitely, so without being staked, as tight as it was, that would have definitely came loose over time. But that's okay, we're going to fix that. I'm going to push down, now that I have the castle nut backed off, the end plate pulled back, I'm going to push down on my buffer retainer detent. And I'm going to unscrew the receiver extension. Then I can relieve tension on that detent up front here without it flying off into space. I will then remove the end plate, pull that right off. Then the new one goes on very easy. We just need to take it out the packaging and place the packaging neatly over yonder. The new one, so you have your QD sling mount here that faces the rear, and we just drop it right on like that. We screw it back in, push down on that detent again, we might get one more rotation. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now we're just gonna make sure everything lines up into its slots and tighten that castle nut. And then tighten the castle nut. feels pretty good. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and stake it. And to do that, I'm just going to need a staking tool. Let's see what we got here. I got a couple of different ones here. I'll just use this one. So this is a Mayhew punch. This is the number 455, all right? And this should work just fine. Nice sharp point there. And I'll actually just stake it right here so you can get a little bit better view of it. And if you want a detailed video on staking, we've got that. It's called How to Properly Stake a Castle Nut. So you can go search for that one. And I'll just keep this one nice and quick, and that one is the detailed video if you want more information. I know you can't see a lot of what's going on, but for me to properly do this, I kind of got to hold it the way I'm holding it here. I'll show you the end product when I'm done. I always start by tapping it lightly, just to set an indentation there. Just like that. I got a nice little mark there. I may actually lay this down and do it. But from here, yeah, that's nice. And with a 308 receiver, that's a good, easy way to do it. And then now, since I have that indentation, I can actually hit it hard without worrying too much about the punch slipping. That's pretty good. That'll work. That'll keep this thing from vibrating loose over use. So if you take a look here, all we did was hit that end plate right there, which is a soft steel, and it just flowed into that gap. And that's going to prevent it from coming loose. You don't really want to use Loctite here because having that steel castle nut with those aluminum threads, it's very easy for that Loctite to gall and just rip those aluminum threads to nothing. So that's why we do that. And then we'll take our buffer and spring, push that right back in, and we won't have to worry about that later. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put our new trigger in. And we do have a video specifically on this fire control group, so go check that one out. As I mentioned before, it was the Brownells exclusive Geissele G2SE. Let's see if we can get this in there without removing that selector. Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. And this is one of those times we can. Okay, great. We'll take our trigger pin here, push that through. Then we'll push it through the disconnector as well. And you shouldn't have to hammer it in. I'm just kind of using that to help me put force on it. And what I'll actually do is I'll block your view so that I can look through the other side and see what's going on. Alright, got that in there. And then we have our retainer on our hammer already. You can see it right there. And these Geissele G2 style triggers, you all use that. Alright, so we'll push our pin in from the opposite side that retainer's on. And we got to get our hammer below our ambidextrous piece here. So that makes it a little bit trickier. That ambidextrous bolt catches in the way a little bit. And actually, with this trigger, so let me show you what we're running into here. I've never put one of these triggers in this receiver before, so I'll show you a problem I ran into and how we're going to fix it. So if you notice, this ambidextrous bolt catch is going to be in the way. So I can't get this hammer in there with the trigger in there. So what we're going to have to do is leave the trigger in there, but we're going to take the pin out. Alright, and this will kind of, it might help it get out the way. I don't know, let's see. Let's take this guy out. We'll take the connector, or the disconnector out as well. I'll drop the trigger back in and we'll try and put the hammer in. If I still can't get it in, then we're just going to have to take off this ambidextrous piece and then reinstall it. But let's see if we can do it this way first. And it looks like there just isn't enough room inside there. So that's okay. So if you look and see here, notice that there's a roll pin holding this bolt catch in, the ambidextrous side of it. We're just going to knock that roll pin out. And I think it's a roll pin. Maybe it's a screw. Nope, it's a roll pin. So we're going to knock that out and then we'll go from there. Alright, that just rotates right out of the way. Now let's reinstall this trigger real quick. There we go. Okay. Now let's put the hammer in. As I mentioned before, we're just going to slide it into place, make sure the retainer's on there, put the pin in from the opposite side. You can do it the other way, the opposite side is just easier. And I'll just use a punch to help me seat this here. There we go. Okay. Now we can reinstall our ambidextrous piece here. That just drops right in, and we will reinstall our roll pin. Alright, and there we go. The ambidextrous bolt catch is reinstalled and the trigger's installed. A little trickier than I expected, but no big deal. We got it in there nice and easy. Okay, now let's install the grip. And we have the dye-free company Kung Fu grip, or as the cool kids call it, Defco. DFC, Defco, dye-free, you get it. Alright, so we'll open this up here. We did go with OD green on our furniture. If you're wondering why, I don't know, I was just in a OD green mood the day I ordered the stuff for this project, so there you have it. We got our screw, we got a washer in here. Let's see what size we need here. Not that size. There we go. Now, those springs and detents from before, we're going to need those guys. I'm also going to use a little bit of Action Lube Plus. So the Brownells Action Lube Plus grease I'm going to use as an adhesive to help me keep these springs and detents where they need to be. And we're using the factory selector because this gun came with a full ambidextrous lower, which was really cool. Really cool for the price too. This is an actual nice lower receiver. Alright, our selector spring. We'll just drop that down into there. Our takedown pin. The takedown pin detent is still in there, I think. Let me feel for it. Yeah, it's still in there. Okay, good. Put a little bit of grease on the spring just to help it stay in place. Alright. Now we'll just put everything in there, being careful not to kink any of the springs. Perfect. We also have a completely optional piece, also from Defco, the plug. So it allows you to use your grip as storage. It even is cut out for batteries and different tools and stuff you can put in there. Oil bottles, you know, whatever. But it also adds a little bit of length to the grip. And it's just a rubber friction press. There we go. Alright, now on the lower receiver, we'll install the stock. I'm just throwing some of this trash around here. Alright, and this is the Magpul DT PR. So that DT, that tension system they have on here is really cool, and I'll show you why in just a second here. Again, placing this all very neatly over there. With that too. Okay, so here's the stock itself again, like I said, OD green. But we're going to go ahead and install this, and the easiest way to do it is to put it on here. Then, if you can notice here, there's no way to get it on, and then you can't really do it the way we did that mil-spec stock. But there's this piece that protrudes from the bottom. We just need to capture that and then pull it down, and that'll let it slide all the way on. And I'll just use a punch for that. There it goes. Okay, so this DT, this dual tension system, notice that when we hit the lever, everything's nice and loose, it's easy to adjust. But whenever it locks into a spot, it is locked in. There is no movement on that stock. It is a really, really cool system, especially for this type of rifle build. It's going to be very handy having that solid stock platform. Okay, so that is our lower receiver. I think we are done with that. I'm just kind of looking at the table here to make sure, but yeah. So we'll set the lower aside, and we'll start on the upper receiver because we have a lot more to do there. Just kind of pick up after myself here. Put away my punches and take a sip of coffee. Alright, so now is a good time to go ahead and swap out the bench block. Alright, we'll just set that up here for now. I'll put it back in the drawer later. But you can use your preferred upper receiver vise block. We're going to see if this receiver actually fits in the device. With large frame AR, so your 308s, receivers are a little different, and this is a pretty snug fit tool, so we'll see if it fits. If it does, that'd be awesome, because this is one of my favorite tools. Alright. Bolt carrier group, charging handle, we'll get that out of there. Now let's see if this fits. Alright, so it's not going to fit this one. That's okay. Alright, so we'll just use our wheeler tool. This is a really good, affordable option if you're doing any kind of like budget tooling type stuff. This is the budget tool to get. This is the Wheeler Delta series, and it'll do AR-15, or it says AR-10, but it means like LR-308 pattern stuff. Alright, so we just set it in our vise. Hold it in place. And if you have like a Midwest Industries upper receiver rod, Geissele reaction rod, anything like that, you can definitely use those as well. They are a little bit more expensive than this tool, so not necessarily a budget option. And I went ahead and grabbed this one, other than the device, because it dawned on me that this is actually like a budget gun, so we might as well use budget tools too. So let's get back into it. Okay. Now, where was I? Lost my train of thought. That's okay. Alright, let's go ahead and get the handguard off. There we go. We'll just pull this guy off here, pull back that Delta ring. Alright, and then we pull the bottom off. And now you have all this old furniture. So you can either, I don't know what y'all are doing with this stuff, sell it on eBay. I don't know. Typically I just throw it away, and I know that hurts a lot of you out there, but that's usually what I do with it. Okay, now, because we're installing this Midwest Industries handguard, we're going to need a low profile gas block, and we're going to need to get this barrel nut completely off. So we do have to basically remove the whole barrel from the upper receiver to do this job. But that's okay, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to use our wrench. And the first thing we got to take off is our muzzle device. Alright, so we got our flash hider coming off, our crush washer behind it. We're not going to need either one of those, because we're going to be using a SureFire flash hider. Now to get off our gas block, you notice the two large bolts on the bottom. We need to pull those off. But before we do, and since I have this captured, I'm going to go ahead and knock out the gas tube roll pin, just to make things a little bit easier on myself in the near future. I see where that landed, so that's good. And we can loosen these two screws. And this is a clamp-on style gas block, so you don't have to remove the screws all the way. You just got to loosen them. And as you can see, it's already coming right off. Pull our gas tube out. Great. And the gas block we no longer need. Now we can remove our barrel nut. Now I hope this was installed tighter than the castle nuts and gas block. Nice and tight. There we go. And we'll just pull that right off of there. So you could potentially just install everything from here like this, but what I like to do is first I like to find a rag, and here we go. Then pull the barrel extension out of the receiver and just wipe off all this old factory grease. Alright. And then from here, take the Brownells Action Lube Plus, put some on the barrel extension. This stuff is like the Frank's Red Hot of like gun grease because I put it on everything. Put it back in the receiver, and I just kind of rotate it to spread it around. And install the barrel. So what I'm looking at right here, and I'll just kind of show you my mental process for this. Notice you have your indexing pin into your upper receiver. So this one's tight, so there's no left and right play, which is good. That's what you want to see. Especially when you're using a vise block like this one right here. Because if we put this in and it can clock left or right, that's not good, because that means our lugs from our bolt carrier group aren't hitting the lugs in the barrel the way they should be if this is clocked left or right. And a upper receiver rod, like the Midwest Industries upper receiver rod or the Geissele reaction rod, can help mitigate that because they lock into those lugs. But since this barrel came out of this gun and the indexing pin is tight, this vise block will work perfectly fine. We don't have to worry about it. Okay, so what I'll do at this point is take a little more grease, put it on the threads and the front shoulder there. And then when we torque this down, that is going to technically be a wet torque, which is perfectly fine, especially on the AR platform, or most guns in general. Okay, and then now we're ready for our Midwest Industries handguards barrel nut, which we'll just open our box here. Now, I will make note on this as well. When you're dealing with the large frame ARs, you have two different shelf heights, and the shelf height refers to the height of this rail on the upper receiver. You have a low and a high. Smith and Wesson M&P10s use a low. A lot of other ones out there, like a lot of DPMSs, modern DPMSs, as well as your Aero Precision, they use a high. It's important to get the handguard that corresponds with a low or a high, because if you don't and you mix and match, you'll either end up with a rail on the handguard that's too high or too low, depending on what receiver you're putting it on. But as long as you know you got a low and you get a low, your upper rail will line up just fine. All right. And the Midwest Industries handguard, also their M-LOK stuff, comes with a 1913 rail section and some wrenches. We're not using any of that right now, so I'm going to set it neatly over there with the sweet stickers also neatly over there. Okay, now we need to get the barrel nut out of here, and it's pre-installed. What I will do, it should be the right size. It is not. I'll use my fix-it sticks here. Here we go. It looks like a T25. So let's see if that's what it actually is. It might be a 30 actually, or a 27. think it's a 27. Let's see if a 30 fits. Yep, 27. So T27 is the size on this handguard. It probably said that in the instructions that I didn't read. Okay. We'll loosen these. So you're going to have 2 bolts that come out, just like so. Then you also have an indexing anti-slip piece that also comes out. Set that with your bolts. And the barrel nut comes out. So we got plenty of grease back here. So what we'll do is we'll slide our barrel nut on. And we will torque it down. Alright, that's hand tight-ish. Now, I will take a torque wrench and I'm going to set this. Let's just go ahead and pop open the instructions and see what they recommend here. Alright, so, alright, 50 foot-pounds. I think we can manage that. I was going to go 60, but 50 will be fine. Alright, and we'll set our wrench 90 degrees to our driver, or flip that, reverse it, same thing. And we'll tighten it down. There we go. So we have our barrel nut installed. Now before we put our handguard on, we need to go ahead and install our gas block. Alright, so yeah, that'll be good. That's a pretty snug fit. That'll be alright. Okay. So I'm just going to take our gas tube, install that into our gas block. And this is a BCM gas block, if anyone's wondering, but you can use your favorite non-aluminum gas block out there. Steel gas blocks are superior in every way. Even if you're trying to save weight, it's not worth skimping on a steel gas block. And we'll drive that in nice and easy real quick there. And install it onto the upper receiver. I'm going to need that. I'm going to set that right there. And let's see what screw size we need. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to start with the screw closest to the back. I'm going to tighten it so that nothing moves. Then I'm going to loosen it slightly so that I can move and align everything here. I bet you that is centered. So actually what I did is as I was tightening it, I trust that this gas tube is straight for now, alright? So looking at it, I tightened it down right at the point to where the gas tube touched either the left side or the right side of the receiver. I set it right in the middle and tightened it down, okay? And now I can push it left or right. Now, if I look at the gas block, yeah, that's pretty dang straight. So that's how I centered it up. It doesn't work every single time doing it that way, but that's a good like baseline. And it's also a good way to tell if your gas tube's actually straight. Okay, so now that that's installed, I'm going to tighten that front screw down a little more. Or back screw, depending on which way you're looking at it. Then I'll tighten down the other screw. And that's all I'll do. Okay, now we can install the actual handguard. So if you notice, this handguard does have alignment screws on the top with polymer tips on them. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll back those off slightly. Slide my handguard all the way on here. If you notice, there's a little bit of play left and right. That's perfectly okay for now. What I'll do is I'll line it up to the best of my ability looking at it here. And if you have something that is a quick detach 1913, like this handguard here, or this, excuse me, handguard. This is not a handguard, this is a optic mount. You can actually position that over the top. Lock it into place and use that to align everything. And then this non-slip plate here, it'll only go in one way where the holes actually line up, so you literally can't mess it up. I like to set both of my screws in. Then tighten them down. And I'll get them mostly hand tight. Then I'll take this bit, put it in my torque driver. This is the Vortex torque wrench. And we will set this to 40 inch-pounds. 40. Perfect. Now we'll take off our optic mount here. And then we will adjust these alignment screws until they're touching the receiver. And you just want to make them snug. You don't need to make them super tight or anything. And that'll be just fine. Okay. Now, all that's installed, let's go ahead and put on our muzzle device. And we are going to be mounting a suppressor on this. So, we want to make sure we use the Rocksett. And of course the SureFire devices come with shims, which is great. Okay. Now, it doesn't really matter where this index is unless you just, like, unless you want it to index so that the suppressor tab is in a certain position. It doesn't really matter with these 3-prong flash hiders. So, what we actually need to do at this point, because we're using Rocksett, we're going to need to degrease these threads. So we'll get some degreaser, spray that on there, or spray a little bit in our muzzle device, and install our Rocksett. That acetone, we'll just take a little bit of that. So for the degreaser, you can use whatever degreaser you want. I have acetone in a acetone safe spray bottle. If you put acetone in most of your spray bottles, it will just destroy the seals and not work. But this one is specifically for acetone. And we'll just spray it on there. Spray a little bit inside that muzzle device. And give it a quick second to dry. And while we do that, we can go ahead and open up our iron sights. We're using Midwest Industries for them as well. And while that acetone dries, we can actually just go ahead and install these. So it comes with the front, rear, and if you don't need both, you can get the front or the rear. And it comes with a nifty front sight adjustment tool. Cool. Alright, and just uses a standard slotted screw. I'm about to give you the secret. I'm going to tell you the perfect size for a gunsmith screwdriver in this thing. Alright, so the Brownells Magnatip 300-7 is the exact size of that slot. So we'll just install the front. Very nice. And then we'll do the same thing on the rear. And I really like these sights just because they're no bigger than they need to be. I mean, you got small posts in the back, posts in the front. They flip up, lock down nice and solid. Just a really good quality iron sight set. Okay, so that acetone's looking pretty dry. Yeah, we're looking good. So let's see where it was looking good on the barrel, but not so much the muzzle device, but that's okay. Let's see our index point here. That's actually not too bad. But I think I'm going to try and shim it just so that the SureFire logo is on top and the lock piece is on bottom. But as I mentioned before, you don't, with the 3-prong flash hider, you don't necessarily have to. Alright, let's get our index down, then we'll throw some Loctite on there. Okay, we don't need that. See where it goes with one of those thick shims. Not too bad. Throw those two on, check it. So that, and then two of these really small ones. Should be perfect. Yeah, so that goes hand tight right up to the point. So one more of these thin ones. And the Rocksett. Sometimes the tear tab does not tear in the right spot. Okay, so that goes right on there. And a little bit of this stuff goes a long way. A piece of it came out there, that's okay. All right. And then a 3-prong tool to tighten this thing down, or this one has flats on it, so we'll just use a wrench. That's fine. Alright, tighten that down nice and tight. Alright, and now that we have our muzzle device on, I'm going to move all this stuff kind of out the way here. We can start putting on our other accessories. So what I want to do at this point is actually go ahead and install the upper to the lower. So we'll actually get rid of our vise block here. Come back to this one. Alright, and we have our old charging handle. Our new charging handle is an ambidextrous. This is a Breek Warhammer. So we're just going to lubricate this before we put it in here. Alright. And then our original bolt carrier group, which is still lubricated from last time I lubricated it. Alright, that's all locked in. Now let's attach our upper to our lower. And this thing is still very tight, which is perfectly fine. I'm just going to tap it with this nylon here, get that. And that last little bit there is nice and solid. Okay. It feels like a different gun already. Alright, so we're going to be putting a bipod on it, so that's going to go in the front. And then we have a Defco Tiger Claw. So that's going to go, we'll say about right there should be a good spot. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that on. This comes with the screws you got to set up here. And for that I'll use some parallel pliers. So we'll just grab our screws. Use our wrench. And we'll set these up. And the reason I'm using these parallel pliers is because these do have a locker on the thread. Okay, there we go. I said that like it was a question, like I wasn't sure, but I am, and it is. Okay. And we'll tighten those down all the way-ish. Put them on there, loosen, and then tighten. And if you want to see a really good video on the easiest way to install M-LOK accessories, we have that video, so you should go watch it. I think if you literally just Google how to install M-LOK, it should be one of the top results. Alright, so that's installed. See how that feels. Yeah, that's a good spot. That'll work. Perfect. Okay. Now let's throw this bipod on here. This one is the worn. We're using one of the newer worn bipods. Install that in the front. Perfect. Okay. And then for the suppressor, this is the dead air. This is the collaboration they did with Ruger. This is the RDX30 Ti with a SureFire hub attachment on it. So we'll just lock that into place, and there we go. Okay, now let's throw on some of these M-LOK rail covers. Then we'll put on the optic. And of course the rail covers are in OD green like everything else. So I'm going to want those. Alright, so I'm going to want one right here and one right here because of where my hand falls. And then the same place on the opposite side would be great. And then maybe one on the bottom. So one right here. Then one in front of that one. And then we will keep that symmetrical. We'll do the same thing on the other side, because that just happens to be where my hands fall. And I mean, these things, they do look good on the gun, but they actually serve a purpose. So make sure you put them where your hands are, not just where you think they look cool. All right, and then one on the bottom. And also, something that definitely needs to be said, you don't have to use all of them. I see people buy like 5 packs of these things and just put them all over their handguard. You don't need that. Let your gun breathe. Only put them where you need them, okay? All right, so, and in the comments, tell me right now, we've all seen that person, that guy's out there, whether it be your friend, you, whatever. Let me know in the comments because we've all seen it. But now we just need to install the optic. So this is easy. Optic's already been installed to the Midwest Industries ring. So we'll just put this right there is going to be about where I need it. And if you notice, there is a very slight amount of front and back play. You're going to want to push forward because of the inertia of the firearm when you're shooting the gun. And these are nice and tight. Well, that front one, I'll tighten that one a little more. That's where I want it. Same thing with the rear. I'll tighten that one more notch. And lock it in. Perfect. Okay, so the only thing left to do with this thing, now that we've got it all nice and upgraded, is take it to the range and see how much better it shoots than it did when it was stock. I predict that it's going to shoot a lot better, just because we got that free float handguard on there and a better trigger and better glass. So let's head out to the range and see how this thing shoots. All right, so we're out here at Big Springs. It's windy as always, but we have our M&P10 from Smith and Wesson that we tricked out here, and we're just going to go ahead and throw some rounds down range. We're going to start at our 100 steel and work our way out and see if we can hit the 5. We're using a Trijicon 1-8 Credo, and Steve's spotting for me, so let's see what we can do. All right, so we'll start with our 500, and the 100, and this of course is a dead hold. Going hot. All right.
Sounded okay to me.
That's all right. Let's move up to the 2. That's only 0.36 mils hold. All right. Slide on up to the 3, which is 1.03 mils. Here we go. Ooh, any call on that?
Wouldn't see a thing.
All right, I'll go again.
There you go.
There it is. All right, and let's jump up to the 4. So 400 yard silhouette, 1.9 mil. I'm just gonna round that up to 2. And here we go.
Impact?
Yeah, wiggle.
All right, let's just go right for the 5 then. 2.92. We're gonna call that a 3 mil hold. 500 silhouette. Ooh, saw that? I missed just to the lower left, right?
Yep.
Impact. There we go.
Yeah.
So much easier to get on target after we trick this gun out versus its stock factory condition. I'm gonna go again. Impact again.
Yep.
Let's go for the 6-inch.
All right.
I'm feeling good.
The wind hit me just.
Oh,
That's high.
yeah, that was just off the top left corner and I am out of ammo. So we will call it right there, Steve.
All right, so our Smith and Wesson M&P10 did really good, did extremely well at 500. We were able to get some really easy hits on the silhouette, even in this crazy wind. So we have berms going down both sides of this range, and the left side is cut out a little under halfway through, so we get some crazy crosswinds that's pretty much unpredictable because it's coming out of nowhere, so you can't really see foliage to tell. And then on top of that, we got a pretty strong tailwind, so it's wild to shoot, but it's really fun. But with that being said, overall, I'm impressed with the gun itself. It shot really well, way better than it did before we put that free float handguard on there. So shout out to Midwest Industries for making just a really good, solid free float handguard for this thing. And of course, every other company we put into this build. But with that being said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to post them down below. If you like that we're actually using a trigger cam so you can see what we see now, make sure you tell us about that down below. And as always, if you need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content just like this. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.